Taylor Swift, unknowingly to her, has brought attention to this company that's trying to push forward funeral rights. And isn't that great? It's educated millions of people. And so that was really special to us. And a lot of what the coverage really brought attention to that mission. If you go to Google and you type in casket, you'll find us. In this case, a music production studio who need a casket as a prop and call us and buy one. And that's exactly what happened here. We were told it was for a prominent music video. We never could have imagined that it was for Taylor Swift. And we never could have imagined that not only was it in the background somewhere, but she'd be climbing out of it as a skit in her first single off of a popular album of all time. In the casket manufacturing side, there's only two large casket manufacturers, and they only sell to funeral homes. And then you have a funeral director who they are in a position where they have an emotional captured customer and they are already in sort of possession of your loved one. And the negotiating at that point is very hard. And certainly there are bad actors who have taken advantage of that. The most common unique requests are people that want a purple casket or a pink casket or a red casket, because those are very hard to find.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining in again. So here we have a very special guest, Josh Siegel. He's the co-founder of Titan Caskets. I know it's going to be very interesting. He has a storied background. He graduated from Colgate and then Columbia for his MBA. Then he worked in some large organizations like McKinsey, Amazon, Real Self, and so on. So Josh, how did you find yourself in the place where you are right now?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me. So I was at Amazon a long time. I was selling heavy, bulky products. I ran the TV business for a while, and then I was on the logistics side, now shipping
Mhm,
large items. And so maybe you have a sense of where I'm going
mhm,
it's applicable to caskets. But while I was there, I got a call from my now business partner, Scott Ginsberg. He had founded Titan and knew about what's called the funeral rule. It's a Federal Trade Commission law that gives families the right to buy their caskets outside of funeral homes.
mhm,
And after 30 years of manufacturing and distributing caskets and being frustrated that they were getting marked up so much at the funeral home, he decided to go direct to the public at massive discounts.
mhm.
At Amazon, I had seen many categories like Warby Parker and with eyeglasses and Casper with mattresses move online, and I saw caskets. That's sort of the next big opportunity, and also a way to help lots of families because I had been through that, in my personal life, and just it felt like a series of broken experiences planning a funeral.
Mhm.
And so, long story short, together along with my wife, Liz, who now runs all our customer service and operations, we envisioned a true D2C brand and built Titan over the following years.
Right. And Titan, like on your website, you mentioned that Titan Caskets, helps to or aims to disrupt the funeral industry, making the caskets affordable, customizable, and accessible. So, like when you got into this field, what are some of the challenges that you saw in the funeral industry? Because I'm sure it's one of those things where people don't really want to think about it before they actually have to.
Yeah, that's right. Most people, when they have a loss, they'll very reasonably go to their local funeral home and will not have thought in advance about what
Mhm,
exactly they want that goodbye to look like. They haven't thought about or know really what things should cost. And so as a result, they often don't get what they want and they spend way too much money.
mhm,
And so some of the challenges in why that has been the case is a very slow moving industry, is that people don't like to think about death and dying ahead of time. And it's very hard to start a conversation about planning ahead or about education in this space. But once you do, just even a 5 to 10 minute conversation about, burial or cremation, what type of casket or urn would you like? Who should be at the funeral? Who's going to give the eulogy? That type of conversation removes so much heartache and potentially expense at the time of need. And so that translates into a rather challenging D2C business because what we struggle with is it's not a business where somebody hears about us and then they're telling all their friends and necessarily, or not hearing about a traditional funeral business that way. And so
mhm,
what we try to do is really normalize conversations around death and dying
mhm,
through, we were in a Taylor Swift video, we have celebrity partnerships, we were
mhm,
on CBS Sunday Morning, all these things that bring those conversation into make it easier to start those conversations.
mhm,
Um, and so at least that brings the customer to us, and once they know about us, whether they choose to use Titan or not, I know they'll have a better outcome because they're aware of these rights. There's a million other challenges with actually operating a heavy, bulky business in the funeral space, but that's the marketing one for sure.
Got it. And you had mentioned that Scott had a manufacturing business, casket
Right.
manufacturing business earlier. So when you and after that Liz came in, what was your vision when you came into the business, and how did it change the course of trajectory for Titan after you came in?
So at the time we met, Scott had caskets up on Amazon and was really pushing that channel because that's where customers are. So very reasonably.
Mhm,
Um, I think what we looked at, and again, there's nothing revolutionary in the DTC model that we were doing at the time. We looked at having our own website and direct relationships with customers. We looked at other retailers. So now we've expanded to Costco and Sam's Club, and Walmart.com too. And so
mhm,
any major search engine, whether that's on a retailer or Google, and you type in casket, you'll find us. Since then, we still sell caskets. That's the majority of our business, but we also sell urns and other funeral products. And then we also offer now pre-planning. So customers can come to us at any point in their lives,
mhm,
plan ahead, put money aside for that casket, lock in the price, and
mhm,
we'll hold funds in a trust until the time of need. And so I think over time you'll see us go from just an at-need service for families planning a funeral for next week
mhm.
to a more holistic helping families plan for the inevitable, and letting them know they have choices and affordable options.
So you're talking about the buy now, die later
That's
campaign.
right.
That
Yes.
it's brilliant. That along with a few other let's call it marketing elements that have come out since like Mort and the Liquid Death campaign that ran. So whose idea is? Is it yours? Is it Liz? Like who comes up with this with these thoughts?
So we were very fortunate to get connected with our now creative director, Alon Gale, who he was a longtime producer of The Bachelor and now
What?
the
Uh,
yeah, The Bachelor, and now you've seen F Boy Island, which is now a global phenomena. He's the creative force behind that. He's just a brilliant guy, and it was interested in the space. So I think we always saw Titan as, I mentioned the normalizing conversations. We always wanted to be bold, but sometimes you need permission to do that, and there's a real expertise in how to do that he's brought to
Mhm.
us. So a lot of the creative ideas you see coming out of Titan, both recently and then in the future, have been fortunate. We've been fortunate to make those type of connections. Um, yeah.
What has been the impact of the buy now, die later campaign on the business?
It's really interesting. I think it's been I don't want to say universally well received, but it's largely positive that this is a good way to start these conversations. Even though it's a little bold, I think we're always willing to turn heads because we know what people will find once they get past the casket in the ad is a service that will help them, and a
Mhm,
company really trying to take care of customers one at a time. And
mhm,
so the nice thing, the buy now die later, it has started to work for us in our ads and around pre-planning. The other thing it's done is, it's an ad that gets reposted a lot. So for example, we'll spend $5 a day on Reddit behind this ad, but
mhm,
then it'll get posted into like mildly infuriating or millennials, where we'll get millions and millions of free views.
mhm.
Um, and so I think it's just we're signaling that we have something for you to talk about, and if you have questions, we're here for you.
Got it. And speaking of the funeral industry in itself, is there a particular reason why everything is so expensive? Is it because of the lack of knowledge or lack of accessibility, or just because of the position that the people are in who have to make that decision at that point?
Yeah.
Is that one of the like what's the reason why it's so closed, guarded, and so expensive?
Yeah, there's a few reasons, many of which you mentioned. I think one is you have a very consolidated industry, both in the casket manufacturing side, there's only two large casket manufacturers, and they only sell to funeral homes. So
Mm,
just like Exotica and eyeglasses, that dynamic of a consolidated market and distribution leads to higher prices.
mhm,
Two, you have uninformed customers that I don't want to make. It's not a demeaning thing to say. Like naturally, people just don't know this space unless you've been through it. And so
mm,
walk in, you don't shop around. It's another dynamic. And then you have a funeral director who, look, most funeral directors we work with are wonderful, but they are in a position where they have a an emotional captured customer and they are already in sort of possession of your loved one. And so negotiating at that point or even questioning pricing is very hard. And so certainly there are bad actors who have taken advantage of that. And so people just want to often reasonably so, write a check and move on with their lives. And that just leads to bad dynamics all around.
Got it. And you also mentioned the Taylor Swift music video. How did that come about? Was it just by chance, or was there something that happened on the back end?
So if you go to Google and you type in Casket, you'll find us. And so what often happens is we have production studios or music, in this case, a music production studio, who need a casket as a prop and call us and buy one. And that's exactly what happened here. We were told it was for a prominent music video. We never could have imagined that it was for Taylor Swift, and we never could have imagined that not only was it in the background somewhere, but she'd be climbing out of it as a skit in her first single off of,
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's the most popular album of all time, but it's certainly a global phenomenon.
Mhm.
And what was really special about this is we got a ton of press coverage, and it was not just, there's a casket in a Taylor Swift video. The video came out the day after we were in front of the Federal Trade Commission arguing for a strengthening of the funeral rule of the federal rights that govern the industry, which
Mhm.
is being evaluated right now. So we were in front of the FTC. And so
Mhm.
what all the news coverage was Taylor Swift, unknowingly to her, has brought attention to this company that's trying to push forward funeral rights.
Mhm.
And isn't that great? It's educated millions of people. And so that was really special to us. And a lot of what the coverage really brought attention to that mission.
Mhm. I think one thing that, when we started working together in the beginning, when we did some research, you're right. When you search for Casket anywhere on any platform, Google search engine, even e-commerce platforms, Titan Caskets come as one of the very top. The other interesting thing that I noticed are like the reviews that we have received, not just on the website, but on these different platforms versus the reviews that the other brands who also have caskets on these platforms have received, and the difference is like day and night. Most of the reviews they seem to come from a place where people really express their gratitude for the help, support, and the ease of everything that they've received during that time. Is there any reason why you think the what is it that Titan has done to solicit such massive amount of reviews from people, especially like in a position of vulnerability, versus what you think the other brands are not doing to enable that?
I really appreciate you noticing that. I think that's the thing about the business that we're proudest of, and really what we're good at are taking care of customers and giving them an experience. Because a lot of those reviews are about the service they provided, the way our team made them feel. And so from the start, we've been very careful on who we hire, making sure that our team who's answering the phones have it really takes a unique talent to work with families in that space.
Mhm.
We don't put any sort of time limit on how long they spend with the family. We make sure we're overly communicative.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of what I learned at Amazon is how to build lifetime loyalty when there is an exception or anything does go sideways. Those are really opportunities, and we never miss. We make sure we are there for the funeral with a pristine product. And so, that's the things that I'm proudest of are reviews that mention specific people they've talked to here. And we make sure our team, not just helps with the casket, but helps with whatever problems that person's having.
Mhm.
And when you can help somebody in the really meaningful week of their lives where there's a lot of confusion and be an alternative voice for them and somebody to talk to, like we have hour-long phone calls with customers. They never forget. And so I think that's what we do. Um, I can't speak to other companies. There are certainly other companies I have a high respect for in this space that I think treat customers well. But then there's like any industry, there's some that don't. So, but I know that like that's the thing that I focus most on, and as we scale to make sure we continue to provide that sort of magical experience.
Got it. And because we have worked together, I know for a fact, and this is something maybe a lot of people outside don't think about, being part of a DTC casket company, one of the biggest, let's call it headaches, roadblocks, or possibility for failure or a failure point is the logistics, is being a COO of such a company. I'm sure because it's expensive, it's bulky, there is time restrictions involved, and it's not like you're selling flip-flops. This is a special kind of product. You cannot sell it through potentially send it through USPS, I'm guessing. And plus, there's a lot of financial burden involved for Titan to make sure it reaches at the right place, in the right condition, in the right time. So how has that experience been for you?
It's very, very hard. So at this point, I've been working in heavy bulky for 13 years.
Mhm.
I would say our metrics at Titan are much better than mine ever were at Amazon. But it's extremely manual. All of the software and companies that have been built around having a perfect small parcel business,
Mhm.
heavy bulk is just years behind. And so we've had to almost, when we raised the seed round, I told our investors there's a 5% chance they're investing in a B2B heavy bulky SaaS company because of what we've had to build on the inside here in Airtable and other no-code tools to make sure that we are tracking every shipment every day. We have a team calling local terminals. We have a team that's just making sure that items get there because there's no other heavy bulky product that has to be on time or it can't even be a day late, right? So like we are like if you've had a fridge delivered in the last year, not always perfect, and if it's late, you're still gonna put it in your kitchen. Casket is late is like just something we don't
Acceptable.
relate happening exactly. So
Mhm.
so I mentioned we're good at customer service. I think operations is also the thing where for a company our size, I think we're uniquely good at. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
And how have you received any pushback from funeral homes, other traditional Like what has that side of the business been?
So they're like I mentioned, most funeral homes are phenomenal to work with. They're in the client service business. They are there to help their loved ones. But fundamentally, this is a sale that they may have gotten that we're taking away. So there's of course some friction there. There's a subset of bad actors in this space who do try to make things difficult on families. There's subliminal ways they do it. They'll mention like, hey, I don't know the quality of this, or like
Mhm.
I wouldn't do that to my loved one, or things that are really awful that
Mhm.
we don't see a lot of that because that happens behind closed doors.
Mhm.
And then there's more explicit violations where they'll say you have to be here to accept delivery, or I will charge you, or I flat out can't will
Mhm.
not accept this casket. And in those cases, we know the law is on our side, and so we're there to both help the customer be educated as well as talk to the funeral director and communicate that we know that they're doing things that aren't perfect, and please help our customer out. And usually that takes care of it. So I would say 9 out of 10 cases are fine, and then the ones that aren't, we know what to say based on years of experience here, and we get to a resolution that's good for the family.
Got it. And again, since we work together, we go through a lot of the analytics. Some of them are pretty interesting, to say the least, especially in terms of what the customers are looking for, and how the customers communicate with us in those platforms as well. Is there something in an interesting story that you can recollect or you can share based on your interaction with customers and how things turned out when they worked with Titan?
Um, can you say a little more like what the type of story would be most interesting?
Like, I think any interesting requests that came that seemed out of the ordinary, that maybe people don't think about outside. Mhm.
Um, we often talk about being very personal, having a lot of personalized options, but it's mostly because we have 1,000 different options. So the most common unique requests are people that want a purple casket or a pink casket or a red casket, because those are very hard to find often elsewhere. And so we sell a lot of unique items. We also a significant percentage of our business is to the military or military families, which is a huge honor for us. And also we have some really unique selection in that space. I'd say the really unique requests are when somebody's a big sports fan and they'll want
Wow.
to have a unique color and add their own decals.
Mhm.
We've worked with a lot of families who have woodworkers in their families who will take
Mhm.
some of our wood items and then do
Mhm.
engravings into them and send pictures back.
Mhm.
Um, or others where we have glass caskets that are sort of really unique and so there's a set of stories we love where families share back photos on how they've further personalize the caskets that we send.
Mhm.
And then there's a whole nother set of families who say, we saved thousands of dollars, and so we took our family on a vacation in honor of our loved one to his or her favorite place, and that's also really special to us. And
Wow.
so every time the phone rings, it's somebody who has a story, and it's not about a transaction, and that's what really makes this business a special one for us.
Right. And I think another interesting aspect of it is that I was just scrolling through TikTok and then suddenly I saw Liz, or sometimes I see Scott
Yes.
talking about some very specific aspect of a casket, which I'm sure like 99% of the people not are not even aware of. Like you can put a special message. I think that I don't know what it's called. You can put a special message in the casket. The headrest can come up to a certain degree. There are ways that the bed can be adjusted, lowered. So that's is how did that come about? And plus, is Liz is obviously a natural at spending more time inside the casket than outside of it, at least in this TikTok. So how does that come about?
We've been on social for about a year now and experimenting with lots of different, just seeing what works. It's always, a natural advantage when you have a casket in a video. It's sort of like, or you have somebody lying in a casket. Scott has been in the casket many, many times in our video. Um, but we really found what works is education, not surprisingly, in these spaces where, you are sharing a little bit of insight about how a casket works, or about how a funeral works, or the laws in place here. And if you could do that in a slightly entertaining way, using the product. I mean, we have a casket in our garage. Scott has one in his basement, so we film a lot with the product. I think that's where people engage, because it is a mysterious space and it doesn't need to be. And
Mhm.
so I think social is a sort of a safe place for people to engage. And we're not going to scare you or try to make you feel bad, bring back bad memories. We're really just trying to be like, we want you to be prepared. We want to educate you.
Hmm. And when Scott decided to sell caskets on Amazon, what has been the experience? I know for a fact that we are one of the market leaders at this point, at least in the e-commerce space. I'm sure that didn't happen in a day. Like what steps were taken to get there? Plus, secondly, I think on Amazon, Costco, or any of these places, there is limited option to customize unless they reach out directly and get it done. So, how did
Yeah.
you decide the product selections? What were some of the unique products that were launched, and like what really worked?
Yeah. So Scott is relentless to his credit, and that's a lot of what the success of the business has been built on. And so by the time I had met Scott, he had been able to enroll as a vendor initially. So he
Wow.
used Vendor Central at first, which is,
Mhm.
I know, is much harder to do than Seller Central, and he had caskets in Amazon warehouses,
Wow.
which is
Mhm.
all great. But I was at Amazon a long time, and they are not the greatest at heavy bulky, especially on the retail side. And so he was having all sorts of price match problems where his pricing was getting pushed to unprofitable levels, and then his ASINs were getting taken off the platform. Amazon was damaging items in their warehouses, and there were a lot of problems where, when I got involved, I worked with him to move everything to Seller Central, where he could deliver from his own warehouses and really control the whole experience as well as the pricing.
Mhm.
And so that's what we did over time when Liz and I first started getting more involved in the business. Um, from there, it's been fairly steady growth on Amazon. I think there's always challenges in selling through that platform, just because in such a hands-on sale, because we have to engage with the customer to make sure everything goes perfectly. And so it's always a little bit of some extra friction. And then we've had other communication problems over time where Amazon's emailing customers that item's not arrived, but it has arrived. So there's a lot in the technology. It's a complicated space to do small parcel and heavy bulky. That being said, we have grown consistently, and we've done it based on what's made Amazon a winning formula for itself and for its clients, which is full selection. Our pricing is the same there as it is everywhere else.
Mhm.
We try to have great content on the pages. We encourage customers to leave reviews, and so we don't have anything unique on Amazon. We don't carry on our own site, but we do try to have everything available there, because that's where customers are searching.
Yeah. And from your perspective, I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands of people who were in your position when you were about a couple of years back, probably working in a large organization, very steady jobs, and perhaps they came across an idea on their own, or they spoke to someone who's working on something interesting. But obviously, taking the leap from a cushy job to something that is new, that is upcoming, and especially in your situation, even more niche than usual, what would your advice be for those people who were in your position, who are in your position 2 years ago?
I don't know if there's any generic or general advice. It's such a personal everyone's journey is so personal. I would say for me, I think I always knew that I would at some point start my own business or work in a smaller business. And so when Scott first, but also I have three kids, and
Mm,
I was in my late 30s. You're right in the middle of your earning potential, and so leaving, and Amazon pays well, and so all of
mhm,
that, and a move was very scary.
mhm,
And so I tried to de-risk my situation as much as possible. So for years, I was an advisor to Titan. I
mm,
left Amazon. I got another job at a wonderful company, Real Self, as the chief product officer. So getting some smaller company experience. Um, and during COVID, I would wake up at 6 and meet with Scott and Liz and help move the business along. But I had a day job until
wow.
May of 2022 when we raised a seed round. And
Mhm,
so by the fall of 2021, the company had grown, Titan. I thought a round of financing would be the best way to take care of the opportunity or take advantage of the opportunity. I thought I could pay a salary to myself at that point. And so de-risking the situation, and then it's the old sort of minimizing regret framework where I said, if I don't do this, I will, whether it goes well or not, I sort of will regret it forever. I think there's a real opportunity here. And so, um, hope it works.
I mean, it obviously is working. Plus, we got connected through one of the mutual connections in the investment circles. How was your experience pitching this idea at that stage to investors? What feedback you got? Any interesting anecdotes over there?
Super hard. As I think, so we are never boring, right? So, and a lot of people will meet with the casket company who's the Warby Parker of caskets because we're an interesting conversation. Hopefully, I'm not boring today, but
Mhm,
in an investor meeting, we're not boring.
mhm,
Um, we were raising at a very hard time for direct to consumer. I think a lot of the shine
mhm,
had come off of direct to consumer with a lot of the public
yeah.
companies,
Mhm,
stock valuations.
mhm,
And the funeral space is always hard because most consumer investors have theses on repeatable purchases or on unique advantages where you have a celebrity or you have a certain licenses and so a lot of companies would meet with a lot of investors would meet with us, but then say, we love you guys. We think it's a great business. Keep going. But you just don't fit we don't know enough about the funeral space.
mhm.
You just don't fit our thesis. And I don't know if I want to spend 10% of my time thinking about death and dying. So, I only have so many investments I can make. We did find a few companies and we were ultimately had reformation in New York led around. And the companies that liked us were ones that what they saw was a real um, business that was operated really well, that already had traction, that could target a 5 to 10x exit, not a unicorn exit,
Mhm,
and had operators leading the company. And so those are the bets that they had raised in order to make. And
mhm.
so they saw us that um, they saw something that fit their model. And so it's really just, you have 50, 100 conversations, and the magic needs to be that you fit what investors are looking for,
Mhm.
and you're okay getting many, many no's.
Yeah, and it's not like you're selling software or a SaaS or I don't know what you would call it.
No,
As funeral as a service? I don't know.
exactly. We made a lot of those jokes along the way. We do have pre-planning now, which is I think that's a fascinating part of our future. Um, but no, I mean, our heavy bulk, our margins are like, we don't have jewelry type margins, right? So like, there's a lot of things that would scare you if you're a consumer investor, but and wanted us to be a unicorn, but um, our investors said, go after that 5 to 10 exit, and if there's an opportunity to get bigger, like let's talk. Let's go after it together, and that still might be where we go.
Got it. Is there any other fundraise round planned ahead, or it's growing organically at this point?
Yeah, I prefer not to do another raise. I mean, as it's always we have control of our business now. It's a wonderful
Mhm.
trajectory here. I think there may be a few things that could happen that would lead us to do another round if we thought there was an opportunity to move much faster. So if the regulatory environment does change, I think that and we expect the FTC to put out new rules this year that could really help. We have a few um, other types of partnerships we've been working on in the background on the celebrity angle that could mean that we'd want to really execute much faster and at a much more,
Mhm.
much at that level of quality. And then there may be a real opportunity to scale our pre-need business. And so if those things happen, we would look at potentially another round, but otherwise, we're just it's not what we think about on a day-to-day basis.
Got it. And so as we come towards the end of the podcast, so I have a few rapid fire questions that I usually ask
Yeah,
my
it's felt
guests.
rapid fire so far, so that's
Not just three or four questions, not too much. Uh, but before that, like I would love to know on a personal level, like and an unfiltered way, like what has your experience been working with my team and with Zena?
yeah. So we met you at the sort of the perfect time. I mean, as I mentioned, Amazon is so like I love Amazon, right? This the best years of my career were there. It's can be chaotic to work with. Like, things are changing constantly. And the thing I loved about your team immediately was you really brought a holistic view on our business. You know that it's more about the ad, that it's more than just about the ads. You know that it's more than just about good images. You've come in, you've changed all the copy on our pages, and you've improved our ads. You've got us back on the right growth track, and you're willing to experiment in a variety of ways that have really been exactly what we needed at the right time.
Really appreciate it, Josh. And I do appreciate your feedback that you give once in a while on a personal level as well. So I think I really like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I saw one of your LinkedIn posts that like I think it was you. Forgive me if it wasn't you, but it was talking about working with partners who are still founder led or early stage, and because you do get I think that's true. You do get a different, I think ownership is so important in business. And when you work with agencies, that's always your main concern. Are you just another client? Do you work with a partner that really feels that ownership as well in your success? And so that's what I've felt.
And like one anecdote that I know, because we work on Amazon in this one, so we do get to see all the messages that the customers send and the communication that happens. Like I have not, and we work with more than 50 brands at this point. I have not seen any company spend so much time in communicating with customers who are asking questions. Some of them are like, geez. Some of
Yeah.
them are like, were you wasting our time kind of a situation, or what I would have thought. But looking at Liz and everyone else respond to it, it's like, geez, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, I appreciate you noticing that. Yeah, it's a very manual, hard business, and we Liz is amazing, and then we've hired the right team. We've had almost nobody leave after a year of being with us, and so
Mhm.
uh, it's really what is special about any company, and in particular our company, are the people that have decided to join us and spend their days working with families, and then they never get tired of answering that question because they know the headspace of the person on the other end of that question is it's their first time going through it, and it's incredibly vivid for them. So they have not grown cold of finding rewarding being able to be there for those families.
Got it. All right, let's jump into the rapid fire. First question for you. If you're a time machine and you could go back 2 years, is there anything you would do differently knowing what you know right now?
I think I would have moved much faster on um, on experimentation. I think when we first raised, um, we knew that the most important thing would be finding traction.
Mhm.
Uh, but as the heart of our business is one that hates losing money also. So I think we've been slow to say yes to rebranding and testing out some new marketing channels. We're just now getting the right creative in place for things like Facebook and YouTube and even we think linear TV is in our future.
Mhm.
And I wish maybe we had incurred a little more loss initially to get to those types of learnings faster. Um,
Mhm.
that's I would say that's one. That's the main thing I think about, but I still think we're getting there. I think investing in second time founders, I could really see the benefit.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you ever been inside of a casket? And if so, how does it feel like?
Yes, it's a rite of passage here that
It's a
our son
hit.
went through our factory. Yeah, I have pictures. They might be on our very bottom of our Instagram feed. I don't know. Um, Yeah, so it's really interesting to see somebody get put in a casket for their first time,
Mm.
because the reactions really vary. The initial reactions, some people are deeply uncomfortable, other people are jumping at like it's a bed. Then you almost universally it becomes sort of a meditative experience. I
Yeah.
think you watch some of the interviews, in particular with Dave Desmalshin, our celebrity partner, when he talks about first encountering, is very nervous about it, and then you sort of realize what these products are going to be used for, and just like thinking about death at any point in your day, does make it does make you pull way back on maybe not what you're worried about from day to day and think about um life more long term, and so you do see people sort of really open up and have get comfortable. So it's like you see Liz in those recent videos looking comfortable. I mean, she
Mm.
definitely was. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, like I said, I think I've seen Liz more inside the casket than outside, even Scott to say. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could be a transformative experience for a lot of people, maybe. Just make them, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know, you see, I think more
I woke
people
up yeah I woke
casket.
up yesterday and I had Dolly make an image of a float tank that was cascade looking, and I said that's our next collaboration because there's a lot of sort of meditative quality to it.
All right. All right. Next question. What is the one thing you like and didn't like about your experience at Columbia?
Columbia.
Mhm.
The thing now we're going back a
Mhm.
scary number of years. I graduated in '08. The thing I loved most about my experience at Columbia is it's really a choose your own adventure. And
Mhm.
so I think people come in for all different reasons and they want to focus on academics or clubs or recruiting
Mhm.
or start their own business. And Columbia gave me the flexibility to do all those things over the 2 years I was there.
Mhm.
And so I came out with an education. I came out with a job at McKinsey, which was just life changing for me, given where I was before business school.
Mhm.
And then it was a 2 year confidence build. Like I came in really not knowing where I fit into the business world, and succeeding there, and just meeting the amazing classmates I had, who, by the way, are still like much of our cap table at uh, Titan.
Mhm.
Um, I came out sort of a different person than I went in. Um, I'm not often asked what I didn't like about it.
Mhm.
Um, I really had a good experience there. I mean,
Uh,
I went into debt. Maybe that, I'd rather not have gone into so much debt. And yeah, I think like I did at the time have a lot of interest in entrepreneur. I remember even writing up business plans when I was there, and um, I think I had trouble making those connections. Like it was very easy to meet people at McKinsey and Goldman and all of the companies, but at the time I was there, and I imagine this has changed just based on I know some of my friends who've gotten involved. I felt like it was hard to come out with the same confidence I felt walking into McKinsey if I had walked into a startup right away. I would have felt out of my element.
Mhm.
Um, and that's probably part of the choose your own adventure thing. It just wasn't where I just wasn't ready. It took me 15 more years to do it. So that's probably what
Is
it's.
that the business plan you shared with Scott on the background?
No, that I wrote the day before I had lunch with him. I didn't have a casket business plan in Colombia. I think at the time the business plans I wrote up were around like social networks for parents, and I
Wow.
think I had a plan for brew pubs and those. I think my entry essay was about brew pubs, but uh, no, they were very. I was not imagining a career in caskets until
Well,
Scott.
and speaking of like in being in the startup space, what is the worst thing about being an entrepreneur?
Worst thing. There's so much. Uh, I I have a friend who also starting a business right now,
Mhm.
and we often text each other on a scale of 1 to 10, like how good are you feeling about the business?
Wow. Mhm.
And consistently, it's either a 1 or a 10. It's rarely a 5.
Yeah.
and it's 7 days a week,
Mhm.
and it often doesn't have any like practical tie back to like how the business is actually performing. And I think I would say I'm describing this as the worst thing about being an entrepreneur, that like it's this emotional roller coaster where and I think like it's you, right? It's your business. So if it's not doing well, it's very hard to detach that from like your own sense of self-worth and like how good you are at something.
Yeah.
Um, but also that's what I love about it too. Like that's like if you're gonna get up, I know whatever I'll be doing, whether I was at Amazon or doing this, I'm gonna be working and thinking about it 7 days a week. So it might as well be this thing that's like has that level of impact, and I'm personally an
Mhm.
owner of it. If I'm going to be investing that much myself in it.
Got it. And yeah, I think this is a very common answer that I've received. It's related to mental health issues, anxiety, and the just the perception of what happens. Like if your other friends at Columbia who are in regular jobs, when they look inside, they might either feel, wow, look at what Josh is doing. He's doing great things, and this must be fantastic. Must be his own boss. He doesn't have to seek approval to take a leave. He's
Yeah.
there are a lot of these perceived thoughts that come in, but they don't know, like, you are holding in your shoulders the responsibility of your whole organization, your customers, everyone that depends on you looks up to you, and each and every one of your decisions have a huge rippling impact. So that just the weight of that could seem daunting.
Yeah, I'm still sitting in the corner of my bedroom at it make this work. So it's not that glamorous, but I think but what you describe, like that's true of
Mhm.
anybody. Like you look at like I feel like that's a universal experience. Is you look at most senior people I know at Amazon. You sit down and they'll tell you the same you
Mhm.
know fears about their own careers that they had when they were. So anyway,
Mhm.
we're all who we are when we were 13 deep down.
Yeah. Very true. And final question is, what's the one thing you like and you don't like about your co-founders, Scott and Liz?
uh, the thing I mean, like I'll start with Scott because it's gonna be
Yeah.
harder to answer about my wife Liz.
Mhm.
Um, so Scott and I like even this morning we like had some beef and we just like talked through it, and we've done that for 6 years. Like we talk every day, all day about every possible issue, and the level of trust you build when you have that, it's like it took us years before we just had to go into business together. So that's like
Mhm.
it's like a relationship, right?
Mhm.
So the things I appreciate most about Scott are he has I think he's a one of one in terms of like somebody in this antiquated industry, but is also like there's
Mhm.
nobody who's maybe like 30 years in caskets, but also incredibly forward thinking and willing to take risks. He's also has a little bit of like that Steve Jobs
Mhm.
um, reality distortion field where he just like has an idea
Yeah.
and will run at it, and like has a much lower tolerance for pain than I do.
Mhm.
And so like this just like he's a one of one for all those reasons, like as most many founders are.
Mhm.
Um, that can also be, often quite annoying. It's like the 20th time we're talking through an idea, but
Mhm.
it's all, but there's so much trust and love there that like you just laugh, we both laugh at each other about it. So, um,
Mhm.
it's just like the stuff we're doing is just does not happen without him.
Mhm.
And then like Liz, like I've known since I was right. We've been a couple since I was 19 years old. So it would be I could do an hour on why all the things I love about Liz.
Mhm.
But I've just like she's just so amazing, and to see her go from a 7 year maternity leave where we were having three
Mhm.
kids to now be like a legitimate world class customer service and operations leader that I think would thrive at 1,000 person company. Not
Mhm.
um, is not surprising to me, but just like it's just like a joy of my life that we get to do that together, and like so, um, and then maybe I'll pass on the
Good call. That is a key.
the second part of your question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. And finally, being in the industry for so long, what does the future of Titan and the funeral industry look like, in your opinion?
Yes, I do think, and I don't know if this happens in 2 years and 10 years and 20 years, and that's part of why we're going to grow as fast as we grow. Is I do think just like you've seen weddings and other major life experiences that customers will be planning their funerals in advance, but
Mhm.
at their kitchen table, surrounded by loved ones, thinking about what is the experience that I want, and not walking into a funeral home and picking out of the experiences that they offer there. And
Mm.
so I do think you'll see more choice, more options, more transparency, and thinking about what is the way I want to honor this loved one in a really authentic way.
Mhm.
Um, and that will take on a variety of forms. It's already not no longer is the majority. You go to a funeral home and then a cemetery and you bury your loved one. There's cremation is now half of what happens out there, and I think there'll be a how do I want to celebrate this person, and then how do I want to do the disposition are both very personal decisions that should be affordable, and you should have lots of options in how you do that.
That makes sense. And I know for a fact that you've recently launched biodegradable caskets as well. Is that something that's been around for a long, or is it something new?
Yeah, natural burial's been around a long time. And we have many options that make sense for natural burials where there's no embalming. I mean, that's the oldest possible disposition method of, pine boxes were here before the industry was here. Um, and so we're proud to offer those. And still a small percentage of our business, surprisingly. I think it's talked about a lot more than it's decided
Mm.
on. But hopefully that's really because that's not what's being sold at the funeral home, and we can bring a lot more attention to that. Um, and
And
same, yeah,
another thing that I personally find interesting is that so since again in e-commerce we get to see exactly what people are searching for
yeah,
when they search for these products. Some of the keywords, like I'm not going to reveal it because it's it's what they've gathered along the way and it's very valuable. But it kind of makes you think this is how people think about funerals. This is the first thing that comes to mind when people are searching for something like this. It's fascinating.
yeah. It's yeah, exactly. It's all new stuff.
All right. All right. Thanks for your time, Josh. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. It was an interesting conversation. Thanks for
I
all the
hope
questions.
uh, I hope we can connect next year this time and we'll have more interesting things to talk about.
Yeah,
Thanks. Thanks, Josh.
thanks. Take care.